So I want to talk about financing the transition that we all want the world to be on, but also, are we trying to transition finance? As Kirsten said, I'm Caroline Ashley. I'm the Global Programs Director at Forum for the Future. And Forum for the Future is an international sustainability nonprofit that we are trying to accelerate the transition to a just and regenerative future. I really like this quote from Buckminster Fuller. We are called upon to be the architects of the future, not the victims. I think people in finance already think they're the architects, because the whole point about investing particularly or financing change is that you're building the future. So this quote won't be out of context, but it's what future are we the architects of, or the builders of, that we need to think about. So I want to look at this moment in time. Generally, what does ambition look like in sustainability these days, and specifically in the financial sector? What might it look like? Of course, COVID-19 is grievous, terrible, shocking, disruptive, and many things to be said. But in terms of the changes that we're facing, I think it's done two things. It's exposed the interconnectedness of our global system and how one change in one part of the world really affects us all. And it has also overturned many assumptions we currently have about how things work, like expectations of government or the role of public health, and our expectation about stability. Things can change, and they can actually change quite quickly and quite dramatically. And of course, there are many, many changes coming in the decade ahead, some of which we know and some of which we don't know. There are many different ways of thinking about these changes. I'm just going to touch on 8. The one you probably know best, but probably the gravest, is climate change. With the latest IPCC report, every single scenario has us reaching 1.5 degrees of warming. One of them we come back under, and in the others we go into a world that is pretty unimaginable. Inequality and poverty is growing, is exacerbated by COVID. Half the world's population living on less than $5.50 a day, and climate justice is a whole issue. Huge threat of biodiversity collapse. If you haven't read the Dasgupta report, please do. It really brings it home. Political economy is changing. Dynamism is in the East. The US-China tension is that and other things are a big challenge to globalization, on which perhaps many of your businesses depend. We have changing demographics and public attitudes, and generational shifts. We have digitalization, which I'm sure is in your day job, but is really changing so many things in the world. In the middle of this, there's something about the role of business and government changing. Government is stepping up its expectations, its demands, its regulations on sustainability. Consumers are changing what they expect of business. Finance is changing. And then we have all the issues around human health on the one side and planetary health on the other, and the interlinkaging between them, and a whole load more that I won't have time to go into today. But now, let's take us to today. Why now? Why right now? Well, if not now, then when? Cristina Figueres, who is the architect of the Paris Agreement, said, "We thought this was the decisive decade for climate change. No, forget it. This is it. It really is now, this year." And the reason for that is all the money that's being put in for the recovery from COVID is only going to be spent once in this generation or this decade. So it's got to be spent in a way that is securing that sustainable future. Because if we don't use this money and this year right, then we will have left it too late for climate change. So in that rather sort of urgent context, what does that ambitious response look like? I don't want to argue that it is a shift to regenerative models. And this is where we were 2 years ago. We were thinking about, what does ambition look like? What does sustainability look like? We've gone from minimizing negative impacts. I hope you are past that as well. Heading for zero harm, neutral, net zero, do no harm. We argued 2 years ago that where we need to get to is net positive, putting more back into the environment and society than we take out. Sounds pretty ambitious. Well, no, not really. We all know about bailouts. If nature was a bank, it would have had its bailouts. But in order to stop bailing out or needing to bail out nature, we actually have to create conditions for nature, natural and social capital to regenerate themselves. And this word regeneration, I think, is really different to being just net positive. It's building capacity for systems to regenerate. And that's what I think ambition looks like. So this is where we are now. Sustainability 4.0 is where our natural and social systems are reconfigured. They're enabled to evolve and thrive and reach potential. And that's where we need to try to get to, not just net zero. We don't stop there. We need to get to this, what I'm calling sustainability 4.0. Quite ambitious. What do I mean by sustainable, regenerative, just? Well, at Forum, we have put a just and regenerative future as our guiding star. And there are many ways of defining this, but some key principles are we go beyond reducing harm or even putting more back in. We ensure the system has the capacity to adapt, to evolve in the context of change. And that's crucial because however good the system is, we have all these changes and disruptions coming at us. So the capacity to adapt and evolve is essential so that ecosystems and communities can thrive. The two must go together. This is not just about biology and ecology, not just about people. And in shifting to a more fair way for the system to work, it's not just about distributing the benefits of growth. It's changing how value is created, how we create it in the first place, and also what is valued. It's not just valuing GDP growth, it's valuing well-being and thriving life is what is valued. So as you can see from all this, it's moving from vicious circles to virtuous ones. So you're thinking, this is all very general. What does this mean for the future of finance? So I want to present this in two ways. Firstly, what does the finance sector, and I know that finance sector is a very broad term. There's all kinds of different goods and services and products in the finance sector. So I will try to cater to the broadness of the term. What does the finance sector actually do? I'll look at first. So in Sustainability 1.0, minimizing harm, it's about ESG screening to screen out some negative products. Sustainability 2.0, it's about understanding impact of the portfolio and the operating approach and perhaps setting targets to improve it, to shift the balance of investments or the balance of financial sector clients. That's heading towards zero and hopefully reaching it. In Sustainability 3.0, which is net positive, it's actively, proactively, creatively financing and advising, so adding capital and advice to make that transition faster to a net zero economy, an ecologically stable economy, and a fairer economy. That sounds pretty good. I think Sustainability 4.0 is saying we do all of that. We actively, proactively finance a faster transition to net zero, to stability, to fairness. And we work to transform the finance system. And we have an active role as a change maker. And we actually sign up to this regenerative economy where it's the capacity to thrive, not just to reach net zero, but the capacity to thrive that matters to us. So those are the things that I think finance might do. But often when I start talking to people in finance, and I've tried this in my own personal life, I've looked at where I hold money with all different financial institutions, and I've tried to engage as a customer. Often I hit first some assumptions about the role of finance in change. And the assumption I most often hit is over here in Sustainability 1.0. It's like, yeah, we've got a sustainability product, we've got an ESG product, you can invest in renewable energy. It's a great booming market opportunity. And I have said to people who hold my money, you're telling me you're doing that because there's a market opportunity, but I'm not hearing any sense that you have a responsibility for helping change or even just being part of change. So I think 1.0 is just responding to market opportunities. Hey, renewables will grow. The second one, Sustainability 2.0, is responding to market opportunities with the sense that finance has got to move in line with shifting expectations. We've got to keep up with change. We're sort of part of this drift towards a net zero future. Sustainability 3.0 is being part of a shift to a net zero future. It's recognizing the responsibility of finance in contributing to change, being part of the solution, not part of the problem. So this is actually using the power of finance, which is huge, let's face it, using that financial and other power to encourage clients to transition if they're clients of financial services, encouraging investees to explore what they can do. It's speaking out in favour of double materiality, impact of, not just impact on the system, and higher regulatory standards. That's quite a big shift, I think, from 2.0. And Sustainability 4.0 is really recognising that power and responsibility of the finance sector to drive change. It's working to do what's in 3.0, but also shift how finance works, so that it's allying with regulators, it's looking at the incentives, what matters, the personal incentives at the end of the year, and the incentives for the organisations in the finance industry as well. And that relates to the goal of the whole economy, the GDP-driven economy. So it's really looking at big change. So my argument is that there are some really substantial changes that are needed. On the left here, you'll see the from and the to. I'm not going to go into each one. Sorry, I know this is a really busy slide, but it's really trying to capture that we will still end up with a finance system that is entrepreneurial, innovative, and rewards value creation. But it goes from acting on an market opportunity to acting out of responsibility. The second one I want to touch on, there's some really interesting writing going on at the minute. I mean, a lot of these ideas come from other people. They're not coming out of this head. There's some great work on Impact Alpha recently about the shift from chasing the alpha on deals for investors, or maximizing margin on each product for banks, trying to outperform the average for all kinds of players, to really pursuing beta stewardship. If you've not heard about this or read about this, I really encourage you to. And beta stewardship is taking on stewardship for the overall system, on which really the financial returns depend. You know, the margin compared to the average is going to be small compared to the health of the overall system, which drives returns for all of us. So that's securing the health of the economic, social, and ecological systems. The fourth one I'll touch on, addressing social and environmental risks issues because they are a risk to finance, which is the original issue about looking at risk and finance, risk and climate, to shifting the social and environmental impacts of finance. There's such an important difference between the two. It's got to be really, really clear. And on the left, it's a risk mitigation, problem-fixing mentality. I'm not trying to accuse everyone, obviously, in this conversation of having that mentality, but I think that's the dominant one, towards a mindset that is creative, spotting potential for thriving. And then I'll come to I've got an interesting ESK. That's, well, I think we all know that's supposed to be ESG. Managing ESG risks is today within the confines of the incumbent, the current dominant values, logics, structures of the finance system, to really thinking about how do we address finance of this transformation of the finance sector itself so that the sector generates positive impacts and not having risks of ESG negative impacts that have to be cleaned up. As I said, I was aiming for some ambition here, but I think all of these are really relevant to think about as the direction that is actually what the planet needs, and it's what justice needs, and needs to start in that direction today. So, sorry to put a spoiler on this, and I know there are going to be many great conversations, and there are many great conversations about ESG, but ESG has its limits, at least as it is currently framed, because trying to optimize a system, a whole economic system, a GDP-driven system, a productivity-driven system that is just about financial value, is optimizing a system that doesn't actually work for nature or society. And that traditional win-win is not the answer for today. When we get to a regenerative future, we can have win-win, but we have to go through some really serious trade-offs about what is it we are trying to win, what are we trying to achieve today to start this process. So I want to suggest that it's time to finance the transformation and time to transform finance. What does it mean for you personally? Here are some questions you could ask as you are developing, implementing your strategy, your way forward, your improved ways of working. Am I locking in an existing unsustainable system? Am I perpetuating the status quo? Or Am I creating a new way of organizing for a system, a new pattern? Am I helping to change the goals of the current system? Am I designing for transformational change? It can be a really small thing. It can be a small business, a small innovation, a small shift in behavior, a way of engaging with colleagues. I'm not saying we are all going to be, prime ministers flying across the Atlantic or whatever, but each piece of the puzzle that we do can be contributing towards something bigger. So that's the personal challenge to live up to start the journey to Sustainability 4.0. So thank you very much. If there's any way to tell me in the chat which of the two camps you're in, I'd be really interested. Please feel free to get in touch. My email address is there. We are really interested in the role of finance in change, so I'd love to hear from you.